Ultimum April. So for today, it's skill number 2. Our topic is bilateral coordination. Before I start, I would like to invite the parents. Please watch the first of this video series. The title of that video is Do It Right, Handwriting 101. It's a video about prerequisite skills that we need to develop first before we teach our kids handwriting or other school-related tasks. Aside from that, I would like you also to watch the other video, which is the skill number 1, Midline Crossing. This one naman tells you about the functional implication of midline crossing to our child's development. And I gave also suggested activities that you can do at home to work on midline crossing. Now let's proceed to discussing bilateral coordination. Alright, so when we talk about bilateral coordination, it actually refers to our ability to use both sides of the body in accomplishing a movement or a task. When bilateral integration is intact, the quality of movement is actually really good. When we see our kid play around, their movement is controlled and structured. When we're talking about bilateral coordination, it doesn't mean na always dapat sabay gumagalaw ang kamay or ang paa. It can also be na alternating ang movement, or it can be also na isang kamay ang gumagalaw and the other one is helping to stabilize. So later on, we will discuss on the different types of bilateral coordination. Kung nakikita nyo ang inyong anak during play or during activities that you give him that he's showing good bilateral coordination, then it's a good indicator that the two sides of his brain are communicating and working well together. Now, I'm going to mention again our first topic or our first skill, which is midline crossing. I already mentioned to you that these two skills are interrelated. Remember that midline crossing is one of the precursor skills of bilateral coordination. These two skills are actually of equal importance in establishing your child's hand dominance, which in turn is a very important indicator that the brain of your child is developing well, or there is lateralization going on already in the brain. When I say lateralization, that only means that there are specific parts or regions of the brain that are developing specifically for certain behavior and cognitive skills. This is also why developing hand dominance is very important. In the clinic, when we see toddlers, hindi pa naman talaga well-established ang handedness nila. So, may mga times na like they will change hand use if the other hand is tired already or nangangalay na sila. Lalo na if it's like series of fine motor tasks that we're giving. Now, for you to check at home, like what is the handedness of your child, I would suggest that you present something in the middle, and then the hand, that's the side of the hand that he used to get or to pick up the object, most probably, yun yung side na preferred niya. If you see your child with a preferred side already, you try to reinforce it. In my experience as an OT or as a clinician, there are times, however, there are parents who still insist on like using a particular side. Most of the time, it's the right. They want their child to be right-handed, even if there are already signs that their kid is a lefty or a left-handed. So if this is the case, I would suggest parents to just reinforce whatever side it is, because it's very important in the brain's development. You don't want the brain to like be inefficient in terms of lateralization. Again, going back to midline crossing, I already mentioned that if a kid has problem crossing the midline, most probably he's going to have problem also in bilateral coordination, as well as establishing hand dominance. The explanation is that because yung mga kids with problems sa midline crossing, instead of using just one hand to, like for example, accomplish a particular task, like kunyari, it's a handwriting task, instead of using one hand to write, pag magkukross na ng midline, he'll try to transfer it to the other hand. So that means mahihirapang ma-establish ang hand dominance. Aside from midline crossing, another integral part or important foundation that we need to consider when it comes to bilateral integration is body awareness. So what is body awareness? Body awareness is our ability to know where our body is even without vision. For example, when we move our hand up or down, we know that it's positioned in that direction. Now, we are not going to dwell too much about body awareness because I think it needs a separate video. So I'll just mention it. Body awareness is related to proprioception. Again, that's a big terminology that need a separate video for discussion. Proprioception is just the feedback that we receive from our joints, from our muscles, muscle sensation. What I wanted to say is that if this foundation skills, if the kid has problem with body awareness and proprioception, then most probably our kid will also have problem with bilateral integration. He may appear clumsy or will have difficulty performing tasks that requires the use of the two sides of his body. Some of you might be asking, so Teacher April, paano ko malalaman na yung anak ko has issues or problems with bilateral integration? So that's what we're going to discuss next. The first indicator is that number one, your child may have difficulty with right-left discrimination. With bilateral integration, right-left discrimination also comes into picture. Remember, we already discussed kanina the role that midline crossing and the coordination plays in developing handedness or hand dominance. For some kids, it's easy for them to determine left and right side of his body or to coordinate both sides when they need to do something. Now, for some kids who has problem with bilateral integration or coordination, this part will be challenging for them. You might see it when they do handwriting or coloring task. So, mahihirapan sila to use their dominant hand to, for example, write or color, and then with the helper hand or the other hand to stabilize the paper or to hold the paper. Kids with bilateral integration problems also tends to have difficulty performing play activities that requires gross and fine coordination. So most of the time, they avoid playground equipment such as climbing the ladder or using the swing, moving in and out of the monkey bars, and so on. Or any activity or play task that require them to use both sides of the body. Another sign would be, given a task that requires the use of two hands, they're only using one hand most of the time. Also, when they're doing school-related activities such as writing, cutting, coloring, they have difficulty using their dominant hand and using their helping hand to stabilize or to hold the paper, for example. When you see them move around, the quality of their movement is not that good. As I've mentioned kanina, if a kid has intact bilateral coordination, the quality of movement is structured and controlled. But for some kids, if the movement is awkward or like it's not fluid, it's jerky, or he appears clumsy, then most probably there is bilateral integration problem. The child can also have poor eye-hand coordination. Again, this topic we will discuss on a separate video. We may also see challenges in the vestibular system of the child because bilateral coordination is actually related to the integration of the vestibular system. We will give an in-depth discussion about this later on in the following day. So we're going to discuss maybe the systems that also affect our child's development. As parents, I want you to remember that when we're addressing bilateral integration, the secret to improving it is actually by practicing it often. So, ang gagawin natin would be to give or provide activities to our kids targeting bilateral coordination. Not only that, we will also target the other skills such as midline crossing. Please remember that the more we let our child perform a particular task or practice a particular skill, the more likely they will develop in that area. Kaya ang goal natin is to practice, practice, practice. So that's it, home starters. We are done with our skill number 2, which is bilateral integration. I hope that you learned something from today's topic. If you think the videos are informative and it will help or guide you as you try to teach your child at home, please subscribe to our channel. If you have questions or like other topics that you want me to cover, please comment down below. Again, home starters, thank you so much for watching. Until our next video.